Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the All You Can Board podcast. This is episode 10. My name is Dylan.
And I'm Carlo.
And on today's episode, our main course is going to be in another lifestyle, where we're going to be talking about lifestyle board games. What is a lifestyle board game? We're going to be answering that question from our perspective, and sort of what makes a game a lifestyle game, what makes a game replayable over the years, what are some of the games that we wish existed when we were younger to be able to play endlessly, or games we would be playing consistently now if time wasn't a factor and we had all the time in the world to dedicate to, say, one game or two games, and what kind of lifestyle games do we see ourselves playing in the future. So all things lifestyle games. Before we get into that, and even before we get into the appetizer, I guess this is like the pre-appetizer, a little update, because this episode obviously is coming out a little bit later than we would have liked. We did do an update in our Discord as well as on our community page on YouTube, but in case you didn't see those, the reason it was late is I had a bit of a pet emergency. So Desmond has not had the best week of his life, but he is thankfully, I'm gonna not bury the lead here, he's thankfully doing pretty well now. It was pretty touch and go for a while there. I won't get into all the specifics, but he essentially had to have a little procedure done, and there were some side effects that they gave us a bit of a scare. But he has finally, I think yesterday he was starting to be mostly himself. Today he's much more himself and seems to finally not be in pain, which is a big relief for me and my partner, not having to see him walking around and barely able to walk there for a while. So he's doing better. Still a couple things we have to get done, but things are looking much better. So that's why the episode was delayed. It kind of just wasn't possible with everything going on. But we are back now, and we are, of course, going to start with the appetizer. And it is not tapas style. We each have our own topic that we're bringing, but they are kind of themed together. And so they're both going to be around the topic of Board Game Geek. But we wanted to kind of stress, because both of our topics are about, it may come across like we're talking negatively about Board Game Geek, and we want to make sure that that doesn't come across that way, because obviously both of us, and I think everyone in the board game community to most extents, uses Board Game Geek, if not on a daily basis, then on like a weekly basis, or to to check reviews on games, to just see what other board games have been announced, things like that. There's so many positives to it. So we use it a lot, but we have a couple things we thought we would talk about here that are been on our mind to do with it. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Carlo, to kick things off.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say glad to hear that Desmond's doing better. So, okay, so my issue here that I want to talk about has to do mostly with people rating games before the game is released, or in many cases, even if it's not before it's released, like without having played the game. You see this happen with a lot of games, like just in the past few years, like even in the past few months, you've seen it a lot with games like the Concordia Special Edition being done by Awaken Realms for various reasons, mostly due to the AI art. You've seen it with like Legacy of Mars recently, which is like the legacy version of Terraforming Mars. So you see these games getting like really, really low ratings on BGG, and then there's people who are rating it a 10 to balance out those people, and you see the comments that comes across. Like, if you scroll through, I don't know if it's sad or if it's funny or if it's both, because the amount of, it seems pretty petty when you see people saying, like, oh, rating it a 10 to balance out the ones, and then, like, rating it a 1 to balance out the 10s, and, I get that there's, like, the idea of, and I'm even a little conflicted on the idea of, like, how do we, like, what is the best way to voice your displeasure with something like this happening? Like, if you don't support something that a game is doing, like, yeah, going on BGG and rating it a 1 probably isn't the best way, but, like, I don't know, I'm not here to chastise anyone for rating a game a 1. My point is, a lot of games get rated a certain way, and then people don't follow up. They just write the game off, and they give up on it, and then that's it. And whether it's a poor review or a bad rating as your average BGG score, like, there's a lot of things that can really just like kill a game right from the start, and prevent any chances it has of ever succeeding, of ever having any sales, getting other positive reviews. People won't even buy the game, whatever, it goes into the discount bins, etc. Like, early on, the game's reputation is really important. And so I kind of wanted to not only talk about this kind of like rating system on BGG, but also highlight a specific game that's been kind of on my radar off and on for the past like couple of years, I would say, called Fled. So it's designed by Mark Swanson, who most people might just recognize his game Feudum, which is like one of the heaviest, most complex games of the past few years that kind of had like some mixed reviews and whatnot. Published by Oddbird Games, so this is a 2025 release. And if you look at, I'd like to direct you to the thread on Board Game Geek called, if you just sort by top ranked threads, it's called What's With the Theme. So this game currently has a 5.6 rating out of 10. Okay, so most people who see that, like the second, I would say like 90%, 95% of gamers probably who go to this game's BGG page and see that are immediately just backing away, or might be like scrolling out of curiosity to see the bad reviews. But like most people are going to write that game off just from seeing a score that low. Like we talked to Dylan a little bit in the first episode 1 of this podcast, our Board Game Laws, about like how much stock we may or may not have put previously or want to going forward. Like obviously one of your laws had to do with like the BGG ratings and player count and that kind of thing. And I'll say right now, like myself, if I saw a game rated lower than a 6, like for most of my, you know, like life as a board gamer that I've been checking Board Game Geek, I probably wouldn't have given it another look either. But the reason this game was given some like kind of like review bombed early on, and I think right now it has like 180 ratings or something like that, is that, so first off, it's a tile laying game about kind of like escaping an Irish prison. You're adding tiles to build out this prison, so it's kind of like expanding almost Carcassonne style as you go. And you have to like collect contraband to like plan your escape. It's apparently a fairly like intricate and tough puzzle, and it's like very brain burny and is surprisingly like tough to learn. But there have been some people who've played who have said it's like very, very good, kind of like an underrated hidden gem for a new game. But the reason it was kind of given these low ratings by a lot of people was that when it was first announced and on Kickstarter, the designer had kind of put in a lot of like offensive Irish stereotypes. Like just one example would be like jokes about like the potato famine and like, you know, just stuff like as stereotypical as like Lucky Charms, and just anyways, there's a lot of stuff that's in like kind of in poor taste, kind of tone deaf. You can read about it on that thread I mentioned. Again, it's called What's With the Theme. So the designer asked some questions. He was active in the forums there and like genuinely tried to hear people out and understand like what because he was initially a bit defensive, saying like, I'm just trying to inject some humor into the game, trying to keep it light because it's a theme about trying to escape a prison, like there's dark times, whatever. But after people, like some who were Irish, some who weren't, kind of like explained to him why, you know, he carried it on, like why it was done in a sort of offensive way, he came around and said he ended up hiring a cultural consultant, thanks to Jamie Stegmaier, who got in contact with him. He ended up unlocking all the stretch goals, like on the Kickstarter, so that all the backers would get a free expansion for the game and all this kind of stuff. Like he apologized that it would result in the game being delayed, but like he changed a bunch of what was in the game as a result, and he kind of made it right. And there were a bunch of people coming in this thread saying like, hey, good on you. Like it's not often we see, you know, someone like what a great response to see. Like I'm happy to support someone who reacts this way, kind of thing. But there's a lot of people who just, again, probably rated it a 1 or a 2 or whatever and just never go back to that page, and that guy's game almost like doesn't stand a chance now. And so it feels like, yeah, when someone goes and makes it right, a lot of the people who kind of wrote them off don't end up seeing that. And the game, it's still at a 5.6 rating. I don't know how much lower it was, you know, months ago or whatever, or even before he sort of came around with this response. But I noticed it's in stock at Victory Pints. I'm either going to end up probably buying a copy for myself or seeing if you guys want to get it for AYCB for us to cover on the channel. It's also on BGA if people want to try it for free, apparently. So, yeah, that's Fled. And I just think it's maybe important for us to reflect, like, if this is your way to express your displeasure with a game, this is your way to kind of like vote with your wallet, whatever. But if you're going to do this and go review bomb someone a 1, at least check up and see if they've made amends, if they've kind of like, you know, been accountable in the future, and maybe reconsider changing your rating in the future so that, you know, I don't know. I think it's important to give people another chance to make things right when they mess up.
Yeah, this is unfortunately like this rating system and the problems that it brings. This is not unique, obviously, to like Board Game Geek, like Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, like Open Critic. Like there's all these different ones, especially ones that have scores that reflect actual like, you know, reviewers and critics, and then also have like an audience score, like I said, like Rotten Tomatoes does, where it's then, or user scores on Metacritic. Like you'll always see certain, I think it was like Slay the Spire 2 recently got review bombed on Steam, which is another example, just because people, I think it was like people didn't like a patch or something. Like it was like it had like these amazing reviews, and then a patch came out and changed some stuff, and all of a sudden it was like a negative reviewed game just because of all these review bombs. And so it's become this way to respond to, you know, dissatisfaction of some kind, whatever that might be. And like, you know, we can mass downvote this game, or this product, or this book, or like whatever movie. And you know, I'm on one hand, I like that there's an outlet and a way for people to, you know, voice displeasure. But when it feels artificial, when it feels like, you know, this is a system to review a product and it's no longer being reviewed or used to review that product, it's being used to as a way to sort of say, like, signal that there's something that you don't like about this game en masse. I feel like the rating system becomes something else. Like it becomes this popularity contest. Maybe that's what it always kind of is. The difference is on other platforms, you do have the user score and you have the critic score, and critics and reviewers won't review bomb games. So you always have this way to kind of like balance and measure. Whereas Board Game Geek, they don't have a system for like the you know, where you can become like an official reviewer, where your reviews will count to the scores only. Like that's what I believe it is, like Metacritic. So you have to be, you know, like for games, IGN will get put on there. So when IGN reviews, their reviews go towards the main score, and you have to get to a certain amount of clout, or you have to be able to have a certain amount of reviews done to be able to contribute to the score. Board Game Geek doesn't have something like that. So it's just users. And so as soon as something gets review bombed, as soon as people are kind of responding in that way, that is all you see number wise. The thing I don't like the most, and I think I don't think there's even a way to sort of justify it, is I don't understand reviewing a game that's not out. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't think there's any way to defend it, and I don't think there's any way to justify it. Like I am.
And just to be clear, this doesn't include a game if you're sent an early copy or whatever.
Yeah,
you have it before it's in retail. But you're talking specifically.
I'm talking like when they're crowdfunded still.
Yeah.
Like Concordia, I'm upset and about a bunch of the stuff that, not only with that, but just like different AI art stuff in Awakening Realms games. But the rating system is there to rate a board game, and if you can't even physically acquire the board game to play unless you have been sent a preview copy that isn't even final, the allowing for ratings to even happen, I just don't understand. I don't think there's any justification you can give to say, because then what is the rating system then? It really isn't a review and rating system. And why are we judging the best board game of all time off this system if the system is including games that haven't even been able to be played yet? Like, you know, by that, and I know like I'm sure, because I've seen games that haven't been released yet, and they'll have like you know, an 8.8 or a 9 right, and the game's not even out yet. So like on the flip side of what you're talking about, and it's not like they get bumped to the number one game of all time. So I'm sure that there's some sort of thing preventing them. But regardless, it's like that's the same rating system, and for it to be broken in that way, and then for us to also like rate all the board games around the world by that metric just doesn't seem right. So it just seems like such an easy thing to change, to just say, yeah, the game has to be out in at least one major market or something to all of a sudden have the reviews turned on. It's not going to be perfect, because the game will come out in Germany and not be available here, but like at least have it available to some human being somewhere, to the public, before anyone can rate it. That seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and yet it still wouldn't address the issue that I brought up here, because someone can still wait until the game is released and then go rate it. I mean, maybe they're more likely to have kind of cooled off and have forgotten about it by then, so like there's a good chance if that had happened for Fled, for example, this one, it wouldn't be rated a 5.6, but yeah, I do agree.
Yeah. And on that same topic, so going on to my appetizer, so also Board Game Geek related, I want to talk about the hotness on Board Game Geek. So there, for those who don't know, if you go to Board Game Geek, there is a sort of carousel on the main page of like the hottest, quote unquote, the hottest board games right now. And I'm going to preface this, like there's some of this I've heard secondhand, and some of this is like not stuff I've personally looked into a whole bunch. I don't think I'm making many leaps or stretches here. I think I understand the system well enough to talk about it, but I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this. But as far as I know, the hotness is very much determined mainly by like visits to the board game page itself. And so, the number one board game when you go to Board Game Geek on that hotness chart will be the game that has had the most traffic on that board games page. You might also factor in other things like forum interaction, stuff like that. But from what I understand, if it's not solely the page views and visits, it's like a large part of what drives a game up that hotness list. And so the reason I wanted to talk about it is it's just that, like, for myself included in this, like, for a long time, like, I would sort of use that carousel as like, oh, what are the hottest board games people are talking about right now, or waiting for, anticipated. And there were times where, and maybe there still is, when games pop up there and I learn about games for the first time from the hotness, and I get excited about them too. Or it's legitimately games that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer that's on there. Like a new Root expansion gets announced and you see it on the hotness chart. Like, that makes sense to me. What I'm less enthused about and have more of a problem with is when it is that the hotness is determined by a system that can so easily be manipulated, right? Like, especially when you factor in things like the giveaways that you can sort of participate in, or if you have a game on crowdfunding or coming out soon or whatever, you can do these giveaways on Board Game Geek and run contests where people can essentially have a chance to win a free copy of the game and stuff. But that drives traffic to those pages, and then if that's not somehow in the back end being eliminated from consideration from the hotness, which based on what I've seen, it's not. It creates a system where you can essentially like pay to have your game in some ways pushed up the hotness chart. And so I know this isn't revelation. I'm not like revealing something here. I believe that there's been like even like forum posts and stuff talking about this, but I guess this is the thing I wanted to bring up, and it's kind of it works out nicely based on how you talked about yours, Carlo, is just like both the rating system and the hotness system. It just seems like there in some ways are some easy adjustments and easy changes, or at least things that could be easy to explore that would be worth it to just like have a better system. And I don't know if it's, I think this is where it's one of those cases where I always believe that there needs to always be competition in like every space. Like, and board games are so niche that I don't know if there's ever going to be Board Game Geek competition unless board games reach a level where you'll see like video games. There was, when we were growing up, there was IGN, there was GameSpot, there was 1UP, Kotaku and stuff. A lot of those are still around, and having all those different options was great because it challenges everyone to up their game and to constantly keep up with each other and not just sort of like rest on your laurels and just like, yeah, like not grow, not evolve and stuff like that. And so it was great to have all those options. Board Game Geek not having that means that there's no one else that can come around and do a better hotness that sort of forces Board Game Geek to adapt if everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, so the incentive isn't as much there, and I can't even really blame them, because if they don't have a lot of resources to then say, we're going to overhaul this whole thing, maybe it's not feasible. I want to say I think it probably should be feasible, but I don't know, and I don't want to claim to know. But it's just one of those things where I feel like to me the rating system and the hotness system are both not archaic, but like kind of in some ways. And in 2026, in a hobby that's growing so much with the website that is probably the number one website for board games, I would personally love to see just these revisited to make them more about the audience and more about the gamers, to make it better for us. Like, I would love it if when people say, the top game on Board Game Geek, like if that had even more meaning. But for me, it's like over the years, it's had less and less meaning the more I've like learned how that works. And the fact that like games like, I've said this so many times, that games like Tainted Grail have like gone up. I think the highest it reached was like 60 something or 70 something. And like, it's not that I don't how do I word this? Like, it's not that I don't think that games that I don't like should be in the top 100. Like, I think there's plenty in the top 100 that I don't like, but there's also some games in there that you just know that they're in there based on like the crowdfunding campaign, the hype that surrounded them. And I wish there was a better way to sort of distinguish all that, so that there was more prestige behind the rating system, and that the hotness system more so represented a true a true snapshot glance at what are the most exciting games that have been being talked about or announced, not just what's the game that drove traffic to the website this week because they ran a giveaway, or because the specific, like, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but there was recently like this, I don't want to call it a scandal, but this thing that happened with a game that trying to get advertising space on Board Game Geek. I won't get into it all here, but that game was at number 1 on the hotness list because of this. It has nothing to do with the quality of the game, nothing to do with the interest in actually purchasing the game. It was the interest in this behind the scenes drama that happened that now caused the board game to be number 1 for someone who goes to this website and they don't know anything that's going on. They're like, this must be the hottest game right now. And there's no way to find out that's going on. Like it's just, it's a system that if it can be manipulated that easily, how is it really truly benefiting us is, I guess, where I start to have problems with. And I don't know, I would personally just love to see it change it up, overhauled. It's been like that for a while. Like let's have a new one and at least try it out. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I can't help but draw the comparison to Chwazi being challenged by Chooser and Tappy Time and being forced to up their game. No, so the first thing I want to touch on is like the word hot or just hotness, because I feel like there's kind of a misconception where I guess like it's not always used in the same way. Like I've heard this same argument made about the word like fun, how it's kind of ambiguous. Like what fun means to one person might mean something to a different person. So I think that's part of the issue, is that like a lot of times when we see the word hot associated with something, it has like a positive slant to it, but with Board Game Geek it seems like it's more just leaning towards what is popular. So I've looked it up before, like what gets a game in the hotness on BGG and stuff, and there's no like official breakdown anywhere, but it seems like it just has to do with like a lot of people like searching the games, going to the game's page, reading in the forums, posting, like looking up a game. Like I think it's just like the general activity around that game. So it could be that a bunch of people are like, yeah, again, we go back to Concordia Special Edition. Like when it was in the hotness, like I remember going to the page and it was rated like a 3.2 because of all the review bombing. So it doesn't necessarily mean like people should be looking to buy this game. It just kind of means it's popular right now. But again, people see it like it's so high up. I think part of the issue is that it's so high up on the page because of course they want you to stay on Board Game Geek longer, like any website that, you know, whatever. Anyways.
Yeah, I guess my quick follow-up to that would just be like, and I'm not saying you're disagreeing, but just like that Possess Me Satan game that was number 1. It's like, what benefit is that serving like us, the board gamers who are using the site? What benefit is that serving us? That going to the site and seeing that game is number 1 in terms of like what information, what value is that providing us to know, oh, this is the number 1 game, if it's not actually anything to do with the quality of the game, the way it plays, the interest level. It's this drama that we don't even know about, and there's no way to tell that either. Like I like that, like I think it's IMDb does it where like it'll say what is the top most viewed pages or whatever. So it's not saying this is like maybe you view it as like it's the hottest celebrities or whatever, but it's also like it's mainly told to you that these are the celebrity pages that are currently being viewed the most. If it just said that, then at least you're being transparent to everyone, and someone's like, oh, for some reason this game page is being viewed a lot, versus like someone who doesn't know board games. And I send a lot of people to Board Game Geek for the first time, and they're like, oh, this is the hottest game, and it's like, it's not the hottest game, you know, like that's just, we're using that term here, but it is not meaning what you probably think it means, which I know you said, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. Like I think it's really important to understand the purpose of that tool. Like it's a really useful tool, but I think it could be improved on, like you said, even just divided into different ways to search, or just like with a bit of context, like a little disclaimer that explains to people like, note, the games that are in the hotness are here because of this, so that you don't automatically just assume like, man, this game must be super, like everyone's talking about this, like I gotta get it on. Like I think the main draw is just the same way people want to be up to speed with what's like going on in the news, and especially with a hobby they're into, like people don't want to find out a week or two later that they missed out on something that everyone was talking about. So I guess it's just a matter of feeling included, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and I think even the Danes, which we talked about in episode whatever it was, not 1, it was 2 or 3, was in the hotness like number 1 or 2 for a long time there, but not all those threads were positive.
Yeah, and I want to like be clear too. Like this is not. I think I speak for both of us. Like this is not criticism. This is constructive feedback. Absolutely, like 100% from us. And I think the reason this is important, that like that we love Board Game Geek, but we can also give constructive feedback is because there isn't competition. You know, the only way to make something be the best it can be and grow and find the things that could be better is via constructive feedback from the community and the people that are using it, especially when there isn't competition to sort of force that consideration at all times. So, you know, I just want to be clear, again, this isn't us hating on Board Game Geek. This is us trying to, like, you know, highlight a couple things that we think could be better on a platform we love and most board gamers love or use to some extent. All right, so with that meaty appetizer out of the way, or veggie appetizer, as I've said like 4 times on this podcast now, we are going to take a little break for our sponsors, and then we'll come back with our main topic, In Another Lifestyle.
All You Can Board is proudly sponsored by Victory Pints, our local game store of choice here in Winnipeg, Canada. We strongly believe that Victory Pints is the gold standard of board game stores, not just here in Winnipeg. Their main priority is having a wide selection of games, many of which you won't find elsewhere. They ship Canada-wide, $15 flat rate, or free shipping for orders over $200, and even take requests to try and order in specific games. They also have a used game section where you can trade in games for store credit, and maybe even find some hidden gems that others have traded in. Note that the used game section is only available for in-person purchases and trades. Again, located in Winnipeg at the corner of Henderson and Hespeler, check them out at victorypints.ca. A massive thank you to Victory Pints for all their support over the years.
All right, welcome back, and we are going to jump into our main topic, which is, once again, In Another Lifestyle. And the first thing we're going to do as we talk about lifestyle games here, I think, is to sort of define what is a lifestyle game. Like, what do we mean when we use that term? Because I think that even though everyone's definitions will be somewhat similar, everyone will have a little bit of nuance based on their own experiences and what games they consider lifestyle games. I'm sure there's some games we're going to talk about today that we're going to say are lifestyle games, or ones we wish were lifestyle games, that other people are going to say, oh, I wouldn't consider that a lifestyle game, or that I wouldn't, you know, I thought lifestyle games were just this. So I think we're just going to clarify that. So here, why don't I kind of kick it off really quickly with mine, and then Carlo, you jump in, and I want to see how much you compare and to what I kind of have here. So for me, a lifestyle game, what I mean when I say that is it's a board game that can almost like not be a hobby in and of itself, but for like essentially could function as like, this is what I mean when I say I play board games. I just play, you know, Root, or I just play Twilight Imperium, you know, like it's a game where that is the hobby for you. Like that's the corner of it that you want to live in. And for a game to, you know, meet that criteria, I think it has to be a game that, for at least for the person who's naming it their lifestyle game, that they feel they can play almost in an infinite number of times, or at least enough times over the course of the time that you plan to have it be your lifestyle game, that you're not going to get bored of it, that there's, you know, enough strategy there, or if it's a campaign game, that it's long enough to sort of function as a lifestyle game, whatever the case may be. So that's how I view it, and that's what I mean when I use the term. Carlo, is there anything that you disagree with, or anything you'd add, or how do you feel?
No, I think this is one that I struggled with for a little bit, because every time I started sort of coming to a conclusion as to like what a definition was, I started realizing that like I could think of an exception to my definitions. Like initially I was like, oh, it's, you know, a game where there's like a community surrounding it, and, you know, you're like engaging with other people. And I realized like, well, not necessarily. Like I could think of an example where you're doing like playing a solo game. Like you could be playing Gloomhaven solo with every single character, you know, for years at a time, and like journaling it and whatever, like making it a big activity kind of thing where you're, you know, like that's a lifestyle game for you. I also thought about the more like, you know, like CCG and TCG style games where you're just like, there's games where there's like there's a constant upkeep of like cost and more cards being released. But again, not necessarily like something as simple as chess, which is like, there's only one version. I mean, there's other versions of chess you can play like online and stuff, but I'm talking about like chess that gets played like competitively. There's one version, there's no like cards, there's no special powers, and yet that's a lifestyle game for a lot of people. So I struggled to settle on a specific definition, but I think at minimum, this is what I came up with is it's basically a personality defining level of obsession, right? Like to the point where, like, if you think about how we used to have our old, like, MSN profiles and stuff, like, and you have your interests, like, you might put right there, like, I think we used to when we played Magic, put, like, that was, like, one of our interests was Magic the Gathering, right? Or if you meet other gamers, like that's one of the first things you tell them or ask someone, right? Then I think there's also another aspect of it is there's no real conceivable limit to the replayability. So what I mean by that is kind of like, you could play this hundreds of times, thousands of times for the rest of your life, whatever, right? Then there's likely some way to engage outside of the actual play. So whether that's building decks, watching the pro scene, like games on YouTube, whatever, reading books about like game theory, like stuff like chess, right? Stuff that's been around for a long time, Go as well. A game that you're able to kind of study in some way or play or interact with in some way outside of actually playing the game. And again, and then the last point I had was just kind of going off of something you said, which is it could be the only game that you play. So for a lot of people, their lifestyle game that's the only game they play. They play this one card game and that's it. But I think there's a lot of wiggle room in terms of what can sort of count as a lifestyle game from one person to another. And I think one thing I just want to add real quick is that one person, like not everyone has a lifestyle game, but also certain people might have like 5 lifestyle games. You don't just have to have one.
Yeah, good point. And I think it's like this one might not apply 100% of the time, but at least and especially for the game we're going to talk about briefly next, which is our lifestyle game kind of growing up. I think it also kind of means when you start, like you're no longer just playing the game, you're also playing the people around the table. It's like you get deep enough into the strategy and into knowing the game that you're playing that it's like now when you sit down with your group to play, your 100th game of Root, you're no longer just playing the game. You're also sitting down and I'm like, oh, Carlos playing this faction. I know what his tendencies are with this. Like it almost becomes meta. Like it starts to get almost to the next level of not necessarily competition, but kind of like I think if you're going to have a game be a lifestyle game, unless it's like cooperative or whatever, at some level you must be enjoying the competitive aspect of it. I would imagine, I feel like I'm not going to be playing a game 100 times unless I'm really getting into like, trying to do my best and winning at that point, right?
Yeah. I kind of broke this down into, I don't know if we want to jump right into this already, if there's something else you want to cover, but I kind of broke it down into like there's 3 almost forms, like 3 types of lifestyle games. And I was curious to see if you can think of a 4th one, or maybe there's even more than that. So I think the first one is kind of like, and this kind of still within the definition of what makes a lifestyle game, but like, there could be some overlap between these. But let's say the first one I thought of was mastery or meta. And so basically this is a game where you're playing it, or it's a lifestyle game due to the skill ceiling, the competitive nature, the ability to study the game, etc. So I'm just going to rattle off a bunch of games here just real quick, like chess, Go, Hive. So again, like a lot of these like kind of abstract pure games, Tigris and Euphrates. I could put Guards of Atlantis 2 in here, which is also going to come up in my next category. I could put Carcassonne, Race for the Galaxy, and even Tichu from what I've heard. Then the second category I would put is content. So this is a lifestyle game due to the like sort of exploring what there is to offer. So whether that be cards, modes of play like modules, variants, expansions, characters, factions, etc. So again, list of games here: Agricola for the cards, Terra Mystica for the factions, Keyforge for the different decks, like Root for the asymmetric factions. Games like Arcs, Oath, Age of Steam, Summoner Wars, Cloudspire, Innovation, the 18XX series. I put Marvel Champions here, Netrunner. I put Dominion, Stationfall, and then I also had Guards of Atlantis 2 again for the characters, because I had it in the mastery category as well, which we're going to come back to Guards of Atlantis 2 later. I just want to cover this last third category. So again, the first one is mastery or meta, second category being the content to explore, and third category being, didn't know really what to call this, but I put it as all-encompassing confrontational. And I put there's not that many games I put in here, but I put games like Catan, Dune Imperium, and Risk. So these are games that have like a strong board presence and have a sort of a bit of everything in terms of like, there's resources to collect, there's a social aspect with like table talk, there's secret information with like the cards you have in your hand. They're just, for whatever reason, these games are games that like, there's a lot of people who only, like I went through a phase where I played Catan like hundreds of times over a few years. Like it wasn't my gateway game, but it was kind of one of them. But anyway, and I know that a lot of people have that kind of like Dune Imperium. They play it once a week, every single week. People have had that with Risk for years. So those are the kind of 3 categories I was able to kind of break it into.
It's
What do
interesting.
you
I
think of those?
almost
And do you think of there like do any stand out as a fourth category, or do you think those categories don't really make sense, or what?
No, so I would agree on the first two categories. For me, I would almost not have the third category and instead like disperse those to the other two. And the third category would be like almost like I would almost have it where it's two categories, and the third category is the outlier, which is legacy campaign games. And the reason I say that is because to me, yes, those are lifestyle games. Like Gloomhaven was a lifestyle game for us, but they have an end date, right? Like they are a lifestyle game for a set period of time until they're done, unless you are planning to just replay this endlessly. But for a lot of the type of board games that exist in this category, they're almost not meant, like, yes, you can go get Pandemic Legacy Season 1 again and play it again, and I'm sure people have done that, but I wouldn't say that's very common, and I wouldn't say that it's something you're going to play over and over and over again for the rest of your life, versus a game that is in like the first category or the second category that you brought up there, like the meta or the content, where for multiple reasons in each, it could be a game you could play endlessly and doesn't have a set end date. So that's almost how I would do it. I was like, I would either just have it as the two, or I would just like say there's also this third category of, inherent. They inherently, if you're going to get into these, they are going to be a lifestyle game for you for a bit, but not for your entire life. So do they qualify, right?
That's interesting. I hadn't even really thought about campaign and legacy games because of the fact that they do end, but you're right. Like, and I think there's even a distinction between those games, because something like My City has a campaign. Like, I wouldn't say that was ever a lifestyle or ever would be considered a lifestyle game for us, or maybe for any, like maybe there's a couple of people out there who might consider it, but
yeah.
But I don't think so. Whereas something like Gloomhaven is like absolutely was a lifestyle game for us for a few years. So yeah, even within legacy and campaign, not everyone would be considered lifestyle, but I do like that as an important distinction to make between the other ones.
Yeah. And so let's talk about a game that I think would slot into your second content category there, if in my opinion anyways, and that's Magic the Gathering, which is a TCG, trading card game, if you haven't heard of it. It's been around since 1993, I believe, still going strong, but I think depending who you ask, everyone will have different opinions on that, but still going.
Financially still going strong.
Yes, financially going very strong, I think. And so it's a game that obviously is still going because there's like 3 to 6, depending on the decade that you were talking about of its lifespan, 3 to 6 sets, expansions being released every single year to add new cards to the pool. There's different formats and etc. And the reason we are talking about this is this was essentially our lifestyle game growing up as teenagers for a number of years. And at different points in my life specifically, it sort of returned as a lifestyle game for a period of time and kind of faded away. And so I wanted to open our discussions of lifestyle games, because we're going to get into a bunch of other board games, but open it up here because in many ways, I think for you, I can't remember if chess was before Magic the Gathering for you. So maybe this is your second like lifestyle game, but am I wrong in saying that for you growing up that it's the lifestyle game that you played the most in your like childhood, or would you say chess? Did you play more?
Oh, definitely Magic. Like, I would say I can probably confidently say that Magic was the like of all games that even bordered on lifestyle or were lifestyle games, like this is the one that I was most into at any point in my life. Like, even if I think about getting into board games, like modern day games again in my early 20s or whatever I was, 19, with Carcassonne and Catan and Agricola and all that kind of stuff, like I didn't invest, like it wasn't the same level of investment and involvement in those games as it was when we were playing Magic. Like, I don't know if people understand really like the level of, like, we would sometimes have like, we would get together on Friday evening after school and we would have like 2 sleepovers in a row and we would just play Magic till like 2 a.m. as like 13, 14-year-olds or whatever, then like wake up the next day, play Magic all day, building decks with each other, like sleep over again, just
trading
like playing
cards,
Magic all weekend. Yeah, like saving up money from whatever, like to go, birthdays and gifts and stuff like that, to go buy booster packs, opening booster packs together, like in the back of the car, like
busing to like
weekends.
Different card stores and stuff to like either buy singles or buy a booster pack or just like peruse what they had.
And like looking at cards with, like, it was to the point, I was bringing my cards to school. Like, we were playing Magic at lunchtime, like all the time with my friends. Like, sometimes you just like you're there, you making a couple changes with your cards. And I remember the feeling of discovering like the sealed deck tournaments for the first time and playing in one of those, and that was kind of like a whole new world. It felt like a different style of playing Magic. Well, I mean, in a way it was. And basically that like kind of rekindled the love I had for the game. But yeah, it was kind of like the game in our lives. Like we planned hangouts and weekends around that game and thought about it. Spent the amount of time building decks outside of being able to actually play the game. We were hankering for an online version for years. And it was only after I had kind of like fallen out of favor with Magic that they released a proper online version. But yeah. And I know you played it more than me. You kept up with it more, but sorry.
Yeah, and I fell off of it over like I sort of went through like stints where I would come back for like 3 sets, where I'd be playing for like a year and then I'd be off of it again, or it's like a drug. But I think what you were describing also sort of brings up like another aspect of the definition, which is like it was just sort of like an understanding. Like we didn't even have to like if we were getting together for like a weekend of doing a couple sleepovers, like it's not like I had to say like, oh, make sure you bring your Magic decks. Like you just bring the box with like your 10 decks you had or whatever. Like we think each of us had like multiple decks going at a time, usually for all the different colors. Or color combinations that we liked. And so it sort of becomes an expectation where like you don't even have to really say it. Like I imagine that for people that are playing maybe not games like that you have to really say, are we playing Twilight Imperium? You can't just randomly be like, oh, I'll bring it just in case. But like for games like, that are in that like, 1 to 3 hour range, if you have like, especially like say you live with like roommates, like maybe you can, you'll resonate with some of this based on when you used to play Agricola with different friends that you either lived with or worked with and stuff like that, is like, it just, you knew it was going to be there as an option. You didn't have to say like, bring this or whatever. It's just, you get to the point where it's just going to be there and no one's going to be surprised or caught off guard being like, hey, do you want to play this? Is just like, it becomes almost like a communal like religious thing where it's just like, yeah, we're gonna play Agricola, or if we're not, it's like it's here, we might change our minds kind of thing.
Yeah, like if I showed up at your place and you were like, where are your Magic cards? And I was like, well, you didn't tell me to bring them. You'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, when have you not brought them, right?
yeah. So like that was Magic the Gathering for us, and I think the fact that what I was saying, it fits into that content kind of category you listed. It's because what kept us like playing, besides the fact that we were kids and we couldn't collect the cards as easy as we could if we had a bunch of money and we're adults, is that every 3 months there'd be like a brand new set with 1 to 300 cards with new rares to collect, and there was a standard rotation, so you could only use certain cards. We weren't following that, but like if you were playing more competitively, there was that too. So it's a game that sort of, I would say, demands it to be your lifestyle game. You can't really, the only way to dabble in Magic is to kind of, now to use the online app, but is to sort of say I'm only doing like sealed or draft limited play, where I'm not collecting cards. I'm just going to kind of dabble in here and there. I'm going to play this set. I'm not going to play this set. But otherwise, you can't really just be like, I'm going to just like dabble in Magic. It's like it's going to consume your life one way or another.
Yeah. No, can I ask you something about Magic? Because I don't think it's going to come up again necessarily later in the episode. Yeah. But so obviously when we discovered it, we weren't into like modern day board games. Like, yeah, we knew about like, what were we even playing at that time? Like Cranium, the odd time on weekends.
Yeah,
and
honestly,
stuff, right? Like
it was
Malarkey,
like Cranium, Malarkey. Yeah. Like that. There was other ones but it was like people would know. It's all the common ones that you would have found at like Walmart or Target and all that.
Yeah, maybe some other type of trivia games. And
that
kind of thing. So like, what I'm getting at here is, now that we've been in this hobby for however long, we've played hundreds of modern day games, and some are older, some are even older than Magic and whatnot. Do you think Magic would have become a lifestyle game for us if we had known about all these other games? Like, let's say we were playing, Through the Desert and like Bus and like Bonanza. Like, I know a lot of these games aren't necessarily, well, some of them are, that I've mentioned, are good with 2 players, but like we weren't getting together in big groups to play with people. Some of these games wouldn't. But what I'm saying is like, what you know about Magic today and how you measured up to other games, like would it have still been a lifestyle game if we were into board gaming the way we were?
So I've thought about this multiple times, and I think the conclusion that I've come to is that, and I could be wrong, sometimes we look back and we view our past selves with a different lens, but I have a hard time believing that the Dylan at that age would have appreciated and enjoyed playing the games that were coming out at that time that I currently love, like games like Modern Art and Bus and everything. Like if I had discovered those games when they released, I don't think I would have appreciated them and enjoyed them, because I almost view like my taste for board games as having, it's like a fine wine aging over the years. Like I think I needed to be at this stage of my life to enjoy those games, and I think that what would have happened is I would have played them and I would have had this bad perception because I'd have been like, oh yeah, I don't like games like that, and then maybe that would have influenced the way I viewed these games or the hobby later because of how I remembered that experience with them. So in some ways I'm kind of glad that I didn't, but I'm also mad that I'm like, you had all the time in the world. You were raiding World of Warcraft like 3 nights a week when you were 16, and you could have been playing all of these amazing board games instead. Yeah. But no, it's a good question. We're going to get back into some of that too. But okay, so going off the Magic the Gathering and more into board games now. I want to know, Carlo, I'm going to start with you on this. What are a couple of the games that you wish did exist in our teens or like early 20s and stuff before we were really into board games that would have become lifestyle games if they did? And so these are games that, do exist, but were not out at the time. So these aren't games that were out and you're like, did you like Modern Art or whatever, like games that currently are out that you wish you're like, oh, if this had been out when I was a teenager, I would have been playing this every weekend kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a few listed here, and I just want to remind you and the listeners of the perspective of who we were at the time and what we knew about tabletop games. Again, playing stuff like Magic, Cranium, like chess, the odd time, etc. So the first one I would say is Keyforge. This might come up more in the next question, though, so I'm not going to get super... I'll say the 4 games right now, and we'll decide what we want to jump into here. I have Keyforge, Dominion, Terra Mystica, and Guards of Atlantis 2.
There's one that I'm surprised is not in there, and I'll just say it. You don't have to comment on it now, but I'm surprised you didn't have Challengers in there. And the only reason, actually, I said I wasn't going to add, but the only reason I'm adding it is you remember when we would get together for different parties and stuff like that, we'd play Super Smash Brothers, we would do tournaments, we'd play Mario Party and everything. If video games didn't exist, I almost have viewed Challengers as the game that you would have been like, yeah, I'm getting people together and we're doing 8-player challenges. I'm getting people together, we're doing 4-player challengers, whatever. Like, it would be the game that we gathered around for you.
Maybe, honestly, I hadn't even considered it. Thinking about it now, I'm also wondering if I would have... Maybe I wouldn't have appreciated it. Like, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated that level of randomness that I've like come to understand and appreciate more as a board gamer. Like even when I first got into more modern day games, I was into stuff that was a lot more strategic and had less luck and randomness. But maybe it was a bit of an oversight. Honestly, didn't really think about it for this at all. But yeah, I think even just with the art style and stuff, I would have thought maybe my friends wouldn't have been gotten into it. So I don't know if I could have gotten it to become a lifestyle game, especially because I don't think it's particularly good as a 2-player game.
Sorry, but I derailed you there. Tell me about the 4 games you did.
So Keyforge I had here because like obviously the difference between this and Magic, the main difference is that there's no deck construction. So this is why I wasn't sure if it would really have become one, because we really liked the ability to engage with the game outside of actually playing it, and we weren't in a position financially to just be going and buying a bunch of decks. Like we weren't even the type to be buying single cards really until we had been like maybe when we were like 16 or something. Like I bought a few singles, but that was closer to when I stopped playing eventually. Whereas Keyforge has the unique deck aspect. Yeah, before I move on to the next game, like, what do you think of Keyforge here? Like, do you think we would have gotten into it?
I expected you to name it. I didn't personally name it because for me, and I won't, like I've talked about before, I think losing the deck construction, that was such a big reason I was into Magic at the time. But I do think because of our limited money, the ability to be like almost for the price that we were paying for like, 2 or 3 booster packs, or maybe it was even just one, I can't remember now what the prices were like, but to be able to say I'm going to get an entire deck that I can play with, and then to be able to explore with that deck, like if we had been if it was not only just us into Keyforge, say it existed at the time, but all of our friends were into it in the same way that a lot of our friends we knew were into Magic, and everyone was having all these decks showing up, and then you're like, oh, did you see that deck that so-and-so got, and no one's been able to beat it yet, and stuff like that. Like, I think that would have added an entire thing in our community to just like who found the best deck, and like who can beat that deck, who found the horseman, and like all this kind of stuff. So I think that would have been one that would have benefited. I'm sure there's people, teenagers that enjoyed Keyforge like now, like when it did come out, in a way that we wish we could have enjoyed it when we were teenagers.
Yeah, even if it had been like once a week, like once a month, like buying a new deck for $10 or whatever, or once every few months, and then over the course of a year or two, we started, like exchanging with each other, swapping with friends, that kind of thing. So I think that could have been a fun one. And even just like the procedurally generated names, like the unique aspect and the names, I feel like would have been an extra fun thing when you're like 13. So that one I had there for that. I also had Dominion here because of the fact that it is like the first actual like deck builder. So we like deck construction is building outside of the game, whereas Dominion was the first actual deck builder where you're building the deck as you play. I feel like that would have absolutely blown our minds when we were playing Magic, to have found a game where you're building it as you play, and then to have expansions being released. Like, I feel like we would have played so much Dominion as teenagers.
Oh yeah. And I feel like we would have been one of those things where, like, again, if it wasn't just us, or even if it was, like, I would have had to maybe I have a couple of the expansions, you have a couple of the expansions, we get together, you bring some of those, you try different combinations. Yeah, that would have been, if not Dominion, just a deck builder game that we could have rallied around like that, with a bunch of expansions, that rather than us having to be like begging for money to go get packs constantly, we could have just been like, for my birthday, it's like, I want the new Dominion expansion. It's one box, you get everything, no more collecting,
Yeah, I could have thrown stuff like Star Realms, Hero Realms, Ascension into here, but Dominion's just like the OG, and the fact that just like the amount of expansions that game has. So Terra Mystica was the one that I wasn't sure about, because I wasn't sure if we would have been able to appreciate it at the time. But I think that kind of like the look of the game, the fantasy theme, and the fact that like, I feel like it would have, maybe this would have been something, if we discovered it, like that could have been something that really got us into board gaming in general. I feel like it would have been hard for us to learn the game independently and like really take to it. But I feel like that's one of the ones that had that potential to, like, basically I'm trying to think of the game that's most similar to Agricola in that sort of feel, where like it's fairly complex and strategic. It's somewhat interactive, but not like, you can't really ruin someone's game by doing anything too mean. It's, I don't know. Yeah.
So I had Terra Mystica on mine, but I just made a note saying specifically that I think that would have been one that I would have had to have been in my early 20s. Like, I don't think I would have appreciated it in my teens when we were playing Magic the Gathering stuff, but I feel like if I had discovered it earlier, it might have been sort of like my gateway game into the hobby. I know that's a weird thing to say, because Terra Mystica is like a very heavy game to be a gateway game, but I mean, like, it becoming a lifestyle game would have been the itch being scratched. And I'm like, oh my God, are there other games like this? Like, what's the next one? Like, it would have opened the can of worms for me, essentially. So yeah, that is absolutely one I had on my list as well. And then two more that one I think you will expect me to have, and then the other one I'm wondering what you think. So one is Arkham Horror, the card game, for similar reasons to what you said. Like, yes, there would have been like a bunch of these different modules coming out to buy, but again, you would get all the cards in that module. And so if we had been into a game like that and sort of like been like, oh, like, when is the next like expansion coming out with the new campaign, new cards, we would have sort of planned a weekend around that and been like, okay, like, bring over the new Dream Eaters expansion, we're going to see if we can beat the first two scenarios, and then every month a new scenario come out, so we could sort of pick up that one pack, do the next scenario, and then try it on expert mode. Like, I feel like we really would have got into a game like that, because it would have been the closest to a TCG without demanding so much for our money. As Keyforge, same thing, but I just think we would have loved a game like that at the time.
You're absolutely right. And the amount of like, so like, we both would sometimes like play like after building new Magic decks, like play them like like by myself, deck against the other. Like, the amount of solo intended play that we had, like, you would have probably played a ton of Arkham Horror solo.
Oh yeah, like it would have been if we had gotten into, if Arkham Horror existed, Arkham Horror the card game existed, and we got into it when we were teenagers, we probably by our 20s would have been Arkham Horror the card game content creators. Like that, I just feel like we would have gotten really into it. It's just it needed to come out at a time when we had all the time in the world to be able to dive into it. The other one I had on here is, I think we would have gotten crazy into it if it existed. Slay the Spire as the board game, though. I think if Slay the Spire, the board game, had come out, and even maybe it means the video game hadn't come out. Maybe, like, let's just say the board game existed at that time, because of the cooperative aspect to it and the fact that it is kind of it is like it's a roguelite, and we'd be trying to see can we get to Act 4, and it's a hard game to play. I could just see that being one where whoever owned it or whatever, and again, maybe because it's solely both would have had it, that we would have constantly been trying to beat that system, and then like, can we beat it on the hardest mode, and can we beat it with this character and stuff. And same thing, expansions and everything. I think that's one we would have loved growing up as well. And I love it as an adult too. So
no, that's a really, really good pick. I hadn't even considered it, maybe because we've only played it in person, or like the physical the board game once, but that's a really, really good pick. I wonder if there wasn't even that much like fiddliness or like managing the game, but just like the size of the box, I wonder if it would have felt a little overwhelming if we didn't have a lot of experience with card games. But
although, do you remember how big my Magic the Gathering card box made out of wood was with the sliding wood top?
Yes. Oh my god!
If I was willing to lug that thing around, I think I could bring Slay the Spire. But yeah, so sliding into like sort of the next topic, but
yeah,
on the same
I had one more.
Yeah.
Just Guards of Atlantis 2 real quick.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right, so this is one that, because of the fact specifically that I was playing in my early 20s, I would say, I got into League of Legends, the computer game, right? And so it's a MOBA game. MOBA stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. For those who don't know, it's kind of like this game where you have these lanes that you and your fellow teammates. It's usually like a 5-on-5 game where each player has like a hero that they play as, and you're going down these lanes, and you have minions that are pushing towards the enemy base, and you're trying to destroy the other team's base, basically. And so, and Guards of Atlantis 2 is a tabletop version that came out a few years ago. So in this one, like, I've only played this one once, and we played it 2v2, because you can play at any count up from 2 to 10. And I think if I had known about this, or if this game existed, like, especially with, I was often gaming in groups of 4, I feel like this could have easily been a lifestyle game, and it's one that is, even right now, I feel like it's sitting on my shelf. It's been played once in the few years that I've had it, and it's one that still could one day become a lifestyle game for me. I just don't know if it will. There's a few reasons being, one, I don't know if it's going to, even if I get it to be like as good as it can be, like if I get it to be peak Guards of Atlantis 2, like I'm playing with an experienced group, at that point, is it going to live up to the best MOBA computer game I've played, which is actually Heroes of the Storm. And so that's where the comparison comes in for me, but I feel like it's one where, again, if we all learned the characters and we all got on board at the same time, I feel like this could be a really fun one to really dig into together.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I haven't even played it yet, but I just know, even if it doesn't ever become, that level, or I'm never playing it multiple times in a year or anything, I think it's going to be one that I enjoy and I appreciate, just because I didn't play as much MOBA style games as you did, but I played them, and what we played of Cloudspire, considering that as well, like I resonate, and even Toy Battle and stuff on a smaller scale, like I resonate with this style, and I think that from what I hear, Guards of Atlantis 2 does it the best, or a lot of people consider that it does it the best out of the board game or tabletop experiences. And this is a good segue, because the next category was going to be, or the next topic was going to be, what are some games that we currently own that we think would be lifestyle games if we currently had all the time in the world. And I would imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you had all the time in the world, you could like pick any game to be one. Would Guards of Atlantis 2 be this like one on your list to be like, I would love to try to like just make that a current lifestyle game and get into where I'm playing it every couple weeks or whatever?
Like, it would either be, so I have Keyforge and Guards of Atlantis in here again from the last category. I have one more game that is a new one, but it would be one of those two. I think Keyforge would be more likely, just because I've already played it a lot to know that I absolutely love it. And if I had, whether it was one specific dedicated person or a few people in my life who I was meeting up with often enough, like, I know that I absolutely love Keyforge. Guards of Atlantis 2 is still a little bit in the, unknown territory for me. I liked it quite a bit on the first play, but I don't know after 5 plays or 10 plays if it's going to be something that I really want to revisit a lot now at this point in my life, or if it's just something that I'll look back on as like, oh man, if this had existed when I was like, yeah, in my early 20s, I would have played it a lot. But I don't know if it'll get to that point for me. I do have one more game, but I'll come back to that in a second. What do you have for this?
So one of the ones I had for this one is Brass. I just feel like if I could play Brass like reliably with no issue every 2 weeks with the same group, or like say there was like, there's 6 people and you never know which 4 it's going to be or whatever, and it was always going to be with 4 players or the ideal count that we're at. I just feel like that's one that at least, even if it was not for the rest of my life, it's hard to really like make that claim without having played more of Brass. I just feel like for a long period of time, I would be able to sort of just play Brass and really start to like enjoy like learning more of the strategy, learning more how to play the players, and really responding to what they're doing even more so than I'm like just choosing what I'm doing. So I had Brass on there. I had Keyflower on there as well. I think for a lot of the same reasons, and even probably like, to be honest, more so than Brass here for sure, because I played a lot more of Keyflower, and I feel like every time I play it, the thought I'm left with after that session is, I wish that this was my lifestyle game currently. Like I could see myself just like, give me a year where all I play is Keyflower. And I don't think that by the end of the year, even though there'll be a part of me that's, all these games I didn't play, I think how much I enjoy like all those games of Keyflower, I'd be like, but that was a great year, like I think I would still be satisfied with it. And then I had a couple on here. One is Arcs. Arcs is kind of like, I put it on here as like not the campaign, like not the Blighted Reach. I said like even just the Blighted Reach absolutely could have been as well, but I think that Arc's just the base game. If I were to like play it a lot more and really like I had all the time in the world, I think there's a level of appreciation I would gain for it that's even beyond the appreciation I have for it now, and that's just because that it would become not only like learning the meta and learning the players at the table and getting more competitive. I think that the fact that it has this like emergent storytelling that comes out of it would just be a whole other level, that it would feel like the game's respecting the fact that I want to make it a lifestyle game, if that makes sense. Like it's rewarding me by saying, because you're going to play this so much, you're going to get these little beats of story in there as well and everything. So I had that one. And then this is the one that's probably going to surprise you, and it surprises me. I think that there's a chance that if I could just say I'm only playing this game for a year, which is Arc Nova, I think maybe I would like it more than I do. And I think it's because, and I'm guessing, but it's just because I talk to so many people, even like our friend Raj and stuff like that, who really like it and like it a lot more than me. And I think there's a level I'm not going to get to, but if someone said, hey, like you can go into this time capsule, you're not going to lose any time, you can play Arc Nova as much as you want, I think I would get a level of appreciation for it. And it would like, if I said it was a C right now, I think there's a chance it could get to a B or a B plus, and that it would take that amount of time to get there, and that I wouldn't like regret it, that I would say, like it was fun to like watch this get better each time, for me to start learning the strategy, for me to see all the cards that it has and start to learn which are my favorite cards, or when I see a certain cards that it nudges me or pushes me into a certain strategy. I think that would be fun to see come out of it. But realistically, like I can almost tell you, unless it's in my retirement, like I likely will never do that with Arc Nova. So there's a part of me that just kind of wishes I could, just to see what it's all about. But
that is a surprising one. I really did not expect you to bring it up. But that's some good self-awareness, I would say, because I've thought before that, like, I know I currently like Arc Nova more than you, and it's probably like a 7 out of 10 for me. It ranges between a 6 and a 7, I think, probably around a 7. But I think if you played it more, I do think you would like it more than me.
Yeah.
But I get why you don't want to, but it's not particularly long. You play it on Board Game Arena.
That's true, and
it pretty easily.
Yeah, and the fact that it's on there does make it, more attractive and makes it a little easier to be able to get sessions. And maybe I just need to start playing it solo for a bit on there, and then like maybe that'll give me an itch to play it like competitively more or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, those are some interesting picks. I actually thought briefly about putting Arcs on mine, and instead I ended up actually putting Oath as another
nice.
cool early game.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that Oath we played a few times, whereas Arcs I've only played once, and now it was already, I want to say, almost 2 years ago probably. It's been a while since that one play of Arcs. But something like that has, like you said, just some storytelling that comes out just from the actual action. It's not like you're reading stuff out of a book. I mean, Oath, there was a bit more of actual like reading text about what's going on in the game. But just the aspect of things carrying over, you talked about kind of like legacy / campaign type of stuff. Like I remember thinking if we could play this a lot more, I think we would really like plumb the depths of what makes this game so special. But I remember us saying like we would basically have to just stop playing other games for a while to enjoy this properly, just because even taking a break for a few months, you come back to it and you've forgotten some of the rules. Like even in the plays we had, I never got to a point where I could get through the full game without having to check the rules or look at a player aid again to remind myself of what was going on. And I think that's something that you kind of touched on earlier in the episode about lifestyle games, that like you have to be able to play a game without even having to think about the rules. Like rules should never even enter your mind if you're playing a game that is considered a lifestyle game. Like you should know it so well. And so that's why a game like Oath, I think, that has, you know, a lot of little edge cases and specific things that aren't super intuitive, struggle to get to that point for us. And yeah, there's other games I could have mentioned here, but the way you would phrase the question, especially about like lifestyle games for us, like, listen, I would love for Tigris and Euphrates to become a lifestyle game, but if that's going to happen for me, I know it's probably not going to be with you. And I know that it's not something that is going to happen as a 2-player game. So like, I don't know, maybe that becomes a 3 or 4-player sort of border on lifestyle game at one point in my life later on, but it's hard for me to envision any other games that I currently own.
Another one that I just thought of, I forgot to write down, but I did kind of mention it before, that I own, that I think I would love to be able to have like be a lifestyle game over the course of like a year even, is Age of Innovation. We talked about Terra Mystica earlier, but Age of Innovation, because of the draft part with like at the beginning where you're sort of drafting all the different things you're going to start with and the factions and it, like also just the way that the board is modular and you're getting all these different setups to interact with and different scoring objectives and stuff. That is one I would just love to be playing, like honestly, like twice a month, like for at least a year. Maybe I find out after that year like I don't want to play it anymore, but maybe also it's sort of I scratch through the surface of it, and I get to the point I got to for a while with Terra Mystica, where it's like I just wanted to always have a game going. So that's one that I look at it on my shelf constantly, and especially now that I've been playing Clans of Caledonia and enjoying that more than Age of Innovation, I'm like, oh, has the ship sailed? Like, am I ever gonna like properly play Age of Innovation enough where I don't have to like teach people at the table, refresh on rules myself? Like, I feel like I haven't respected that game enough. I played it the amount it's meant to be played.
Yeah. Well, don't be making any rash decisions or getting rid of it necessarily. You never know. You never know what might happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's a good pick. So far, I think I sort of so far land on the side of I do prefer Terra Mystica over Age of Innovation. But for the pure like exploration aspect, like I think Age of Innovation has more of that discovery with seeing the different combinations of the factions with the abilities and the powers and all that kind of stuff, versus Terra Mystica being a bit more about like, I think if we were playing Terra Mystica as a lifestyle game, there would be a bit more of like maybe you pick a faction and play that one for a few months. Like every time you play that faction, then you move on and pick a different faction and learn that one, and you're kind of cycling through them to learn the game that way, where it feels more about the mastery than, you know, it's a bit more of like a different approach to a lifestyle game than Age of Innovation.
It would be like you'd have a lifestyle faction in a lifestyle game. Like it would be like that's your faction and you're trying to get as best as you can with it. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to know, what games do you foresee being lifestyle games for us in 20 years? Or another, like this is all the same kind of topic, but like instead of that, or in addition to that, like what's a game that doesn't exist, or a type of game that doesn't exist that you hope gets made or exists to become your lifestyle game in the future? Or even what's a game you haven't played or delved into that when you look at, you're like, that might be that's a retirement home game or something like that. Like what's your future looking like with lifestyle games?
Man, you really stumped me with this one. I thought long and hard about this, and so like I'm just talk through my thought process here a little bit. So 20 years from now, I'd be 58. So like somewhere in the neighborhood of retirement. Hopefully, I'm not working too long past 58. My kids would be in their 20s. Like I have no idea if I'd even be looking for a lifestyle game at that point in my life. Like that was the other thing I started asking myself about what kind of lifestyle games, and then there was a point where I went, wait a second, would I even want a lifestyle game, or is at that point would I want to be playing a wide variety of games? Like I don't know, but I think if I was going to stumble upon some type of lifestyle game, I think it would have to have some type of formula that is similar to Agricola in the sense that it is a game, like a relatively simple game system where the replayability and the kind of like expandability comes from just like card expansions, relatively inexpensive card expansions. And it would have to be a game, I think, that plays a wide range of players, because like Agricola, when it was a lifestyle game for me, I was playing it quite often with 2 players, even though it is better with 3 or 4, I think, but it's still really, really good with 2. So I was happy to play it at all those counts. I don't know if a 2-player only game can or will ever be a lifestyle game for me again. Like maybe if either of my kids gets into that a lot, like I feel like for a 2-player game to be a lifestyle game, it doesn't have to be someone you live with. Like then you just have to make it a priority. It has to be one of your favorite games. You have to be getting out and going to game stores, to like attending events to make sure you're playing it, right? So I think it would have to be something that, plays a lot of players, doesn't have ongoing costs aside from maybe some small card expansions. I don't want a money pit that's going to be like discontinued, like a CCG type of game, whatever. Other than that, I think the only other option could be something like a Tigris and Euphrates that just feels like a classic feeling, like, timeless, replayable game. But I don't know. I wish I had been able to give a better answer here, but I thought long and hard about it, and I think it's either got to be lots of cards to explore or something kind of, with that classic feel.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And it's also like I feel like it could go either way for me. And so you probably feel the same way, where it's like we could be that age and now wanting to be like, maybe there's still like 5,000 board games coming out every year. And if you all of a sudden have more and more time, especially as retirement's coming on, it's like now I can explore all these games even more freely, or I have more freedom to do so. But at the same time, maybe we're slowing down and we're like, I don't want to keep up with all these new games. Like I found the game I like and I just want to play this like constantly, right? So it's hard to know like where the mind is going to end up. So I went a little aspirational and I focused more on the games that I either haven't played or have not played a lot that I could see like becoming lifestyle games for me. And so a couple that I wrote down that I think would be fun to like even temporarily become lifestyle games and to see if like I could play this the rest of my life or whatever is Through the Ages. So that's one I've only played a little bit of, but I feel like if I had the time and I was in my 50s and stuff, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna get really into Through the Ages. Like that's one that has the depth there that if I was enjoying it, I probably could just get really into Through the Ages. So I had
this pick. Love this pick. I wish I had thought of it for myself, because I've had the app for years and I've tried the tutorial and stuff and thought like one day in the future I'm going to start playing so much of this game, but now is not the time. Yeah.
And then 2 that I don't know if I'm going to enjoy them, but I would love to just like try for a year playing once a month if I had the freedom to do so. And that's Eclipse and Twilight Imperium. Both games that like I don't know if I would want them to be, but I feel like the only way to know is to like have them be for a little bit. But that's a luxury. I don't have the space to be able to invite for that long of a time. But if I could just like have a group where, oh yeah, I'm playing Twilight Imperium once a month, I know the rules, I don't have to refresh, and I'm just like playing the same faction for a bit, then I'm trying a different one. Like I think I would enjoy a period of my life being that. And then if I was really enjoying it, then I've got a lifestyle game for the future. And then the last one is, and so this is my Uwe pick, but I'm going to make a pick, but I'm going to say that it could almost be any Uwe game. I think it would be sweet if at some point in the future, an Uwe game became a lifestyle game for us to play 2 players. And so the one I wrote down here is Fields of Arle, only because that's one that I've only played once and I was really intrigued by, but really like I'm only putting that down because I know it like two is the ideal count for it. But who knows what other games exist at that time? Who knows which other ones we've dove into? But it's almost like our like late life Uwe game, like Agricola was an early life a game for you. It'd be sweet to get into one that has that kind of depth and say, well, we know we're going to play this like 120 times over, how many years, and we're just going to like keep track of what our records are with each other and just start to like really get into it. I think that would be really fun.
That's a great pick too. I would probably put Le Havre slightly ahead of Fields of Arles, but if I was going to nominate any 2-player Agricola games like for us to dive into together, I think those would be the two that I'd pick. So yeah, the Fields of Arles is a great shout actually.
Yeah, and who knows what other Uwe games will exist by then that maybe could be on that list as well. Yeah. Cool. The last thing wasn't on the main course, but it like on our topic list here, but it kind of came to me as we were talking. I just wanted to ask you a question, which is, do you think that, how do I word this? Do you think that being into a lifestyle game, do you think that it sort of robs a person from experiencing the board game hobby proper? Or do you think that it sort of is, like on the flip side of that, it's sort of like really encompasses what the board game hobby is, where it's like you rally around this thing around the table, like, because like I don't know if there's really an answer. I just want to get your thoughts on it. It's like if right now we played, I'm just going to use Keyflower as an example, but like if we played Keyflower, like every week, even like, or whenever we got a game night together, we weren't saying, do you guys want to get together for games? We were saying, you guys free for Keyflower this week? Like with that, like that would be amazing. We get to experience this game to a level of depth that it would be like, wonderful to be able to experience a lot of games like that. But think about all the games that are as good or better than Keyflower for you, for instance. It's my number one game, but like that, then we wouldn't be able to play, or we wouldn't be able to find time to play. Like, does it rob you, or does it sort of hold you back from really experiencing the hobby, or is it really what the hobby's all about?
What a question. What a question to throw at me at the last second here. Let me think for a second. I think there's the both sides of like, I think playing, the way I got into the hobby, playing basically Carcassonne like hundreds of times, then Catan probably hundreds of times. I think I probably played both those games hundreds of times before I even played my like third or fourth modern day game, and then it was like hundreds of plays of Agricola and stuff. So I had a few of those. Like I got in with a few select games that were kind of lifestyle games before I really started exploring, and I think it has done two things for me. One is that it has made me sort of upset that I didn't start branching out sooner. Like for sure I spent too long going deep on those lifestyle games. I'm like, I could have discovered all these other games that, games I've discovered in the last 5 years that existed back then. I'm kind of upset that I didn't take the time to branch out a little more. But at the same time, it's given me the perspective to see the level of depth that games can have comparative to what you get on that first impression. So whether it's something as simple as Carcassonne and seeing the depth that it has after this many plays, or whether it's something more complex like Agricola and having played it hundreds of times, but it makes me always, like, those games are always in the back of my mind when I play something these days, and I have kind of like a lukewarm first impression, or I think, like this is getting a lot of hype. I'm always thinking like, but what about repeat plays? Like once I'm not thinking about the rules anymore, once this game becomes, I get better at the game and whatnot, or I'm playing with people who are more experienced, I feel like I always have that perspective to lean on, and maybe give games more of a chance as a result. So I don't know. I think it can kind of go both ways.
Yeah, like for me, the reason I kind of thought about asking this too is Gloomhaven is really the only board game that I have played consistently for a long period of time with the same people or same person or whatever at a table, right? Like not counting video games and different things I played throughout. And Gloomhaven was cooperative, right? So I haven't really had like a competitive game to get into where you get into with the same people. And so the competitiveness can reach a level that maybe wouldn't be comfortable if you didn't have as much rapport, you didn't have as many plays with someone. I haven't had that in a competitive game. It's only been in a cooperative game. And so there's a part of me that, even though I think I would always lean to like, I like exploring all these new designs and what what are the unique ways people like find to create even a new genre or to redefine an existing genre. But there's this thing that I feel like I've never had of where I just get to like really get into the weeds on a competitive game with the same people and kind of see how that evolves over the course of years. And so I think that there's a part of me that like I'm going to have that at some point in my life. Like I want to have experienced that. But a lot of the games that I like, at least now, I would say that would be that game for me. Like, am I going to like if it's Keyflower, has the ship then sailed on Keyflower, or like would I have had to discover Keyflower at a time where I was ready for it to be that for me? Or can I just like, in 10 years, 15 years be like, okay, now I'm just going to start playing Keyflower more, or will it always just sort of be the game now that I play like, twice a year, 3 times a year, whatever?
I don't know. If you want to play Keyflower like once or twice a month, count me in.
Okay, that's good to know. Good. But yeah, no, it was just like, it's interesting. Like I feel like there is something with the hobby you lose, like when you just kind of lean on a lifestyle game. But at the same time, I think there's something from the hobby you lose if you're just playing all the new games that come out and have a sort of a rotating collection, right? Like, and it's hard. It's kind of it's a catch-22. It's like a lesson in, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like you can't, unless you have the luxury of having all the time and you can kind of do both and have groups you explore a bunch of new games with and have lifestyle games. And like, I'm super envious for those out there that have that. Like you kind of have to pick your lane and just commit to it at different points of your life. Otherwise you're going to feel like you're not fully experiencing either lane to its fullest, and so like I think we've whether we know it, we've sort of resigned ourselves and accepted that like we don't have lifestyle board games right now. We have games we play more often than others, or games we play a lot on BGA, but like even our favorite games, the ones we put in our top 3 on our top 50 of all time, I don't think either of us play those games nearly as much as we would like to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is sort of cemented. I was kind of on the fence about what my next topic is going to be, but I won't say it here, but you'll know when I reference it back in the next episode or maybe the one after. But yeah, the last thing I was going to say is like some of these like I have games that I've looked at on my shelf, whether it's a game I've played once or a couple times or a game that's maybe on my unplayed shelf. I've had games that I've thought at times like, this could be a lifestyle game, so I'm not going to play it yet, because if I do, I'm going to get so into it that it's going to prevent me from getting to those other games that should be a higher priority for me right now. And I'm sure we've done this both with like video games before, where like someone's like, oh man, I got into this game, it's so good, but like careful, once you get playing, you're going to get hooked and all this stuff. I'm like, I can't afford to get into a game right now that I'm going to be spending like 20 hours a week playing or whatever when I have this other stuff on the go. So there's kind of that aspect of like, sometimes there's these games that are like tempting to get into as a lifestyle game, but that if you do, like you said, it's going to mean that you're not doing like playing other games as a result. So
yeah, those are the games you put in the special part of your shelf. They're like, these are the games that I will pick up one day when they're ready to properly be experienced in the way that I think they need to be, which is once X amount of times a year, whatever. So
yeah, we call them someday games.
Someday games, yeah. Well, with that, we are going to call this episode an end. We're going to say this episode is coming to an end. And so thank you so much for listening. If you are unfamiliar with us, or if this is the first episode you're listening, we have a YouTube channel. You can find us at youtube.com/allyoucanboard. We've got a whole ton, hundreds of videos there for you to watch, and new videos coming every month. If you'd like to chat with us in our amazing community about this episode or about any of the videos or any of the content that we create, we have a Discord. You can join us on our Discord for free. There's a link in the show notes. You can find that link also on our YouTube channel as well. If you'd like to support the show, please consider leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice, or just help spread the word, let more people know about us. If you want to support us financially, we do have a Patreon where you can get access to some bonus podcast content, as well as some other bonus content, sometimes giveaways, which we're in the middle of doing right now as well. Not so much, giveaways of games that we got from publishers that we're not keeping and stuff like that. You'll have an opportunity for those as well. Otherwise, this has been episode 10 of the All You Can Board podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you will join us again in, I guess, a little less than 2 weeks' time from recording this, because this one's coming out late, but that will be episode 11. We will hear you then. You'll hear us then. Man, I screw this up every time.
See ya.